Hi there, listeners.
Today we're brought to you by Yokkao, the world's most prolific Muay Thai brand.
That's right. We're so excited to be teamed up with Yokkao to bring you the best Muay Thai gear.
Honestly, mate, as a coach, it took me a long time to find pads that don't wear down after a few months, but my Yokkaos are staying strong.
It's the worst when you get kicked in the forearms with bad pads.
Yeah, it is the worst, especially when you have to do it every day.
If there's one thing you should never compromise on with martial arts, it's the gear that keeps you safe.
100%, mate. And Yokkao has the absolute best quality of training gear, gloves, shorts, and clothes as well.
Not only that, it's the best value for the quality of the equipment too.
Also, Yokkao are offering you 10% off any purchase by using code CombatCasuals10 at the checkout.
That's Combat Casuals 10 with no spaces.
Get yourself some top quality Muay Thai gear and save some cash. Hello and welcome to the Combat Casuals podcast.
If you're a fan of mixed martial arts and all things related, stick around.
We'll be talking everything from past and future events
to harnessing your inner chi and everything in between.
We want to provide you with the opportunity to get involved in the ultimate fighting conversation.
We've been friends for too long now,
and we always have strange conversations.
So we thought, hey, why not make a podcast?
I'm Dustin.
I'm Ian.
And we're the Combat Casuals. Is that from the paint fumes?
You know what? Part of me thought it was maybe because of the paint fumes, because obviously when you're spraying, you meant to wear a mask, and this morning I was like, fuck it, it'll be fine. But then I woke up with you spray paint, to base paint it, you spray them, and then you let them dry, and then you paint over the base painting.
I did not know that. I thought it was all just hand painted, the models.
No. You can use an airbrush as well, but you got to make sure that there's paint underneath to allow it to stick onto the model, I guess.
What is an airbrush? I thought that was a digital term.
I think that's where the term
I didn't think it was
from.
A real thing.
An airbrush is it looks like a little bit of a special pen where you put paint into it and you press the button and it pushes air out and pushes the paint with it. So essentially acts like a spray can, but in an air gun. So it allows you a bit more control of what you're painting.
Right.
It's used for glow effects a lot of the time.
Okie dokie, that makes sense. I understand.
Yeah.
Nice.
Me just being a massive nerd, basically.
I'll just quickly say, I do have my dog in the room with me today.
Yeah.
He's asleep on the sofa at the moment, so I'm hoping it stays that way. But if he, starts scratching at the door or barking or something, I may just have to get up and let him out.
That's cool. Don't worry, man.
He's
it's
in
all
here with
good.
me.
You know, I'm sure. Bring him on. He'll ask him questions.
So, man, there's been there's been some very significant news since our last episode, which was with McDojo Life, which I recommend anyone to go back and listen to because it was good. And
it was a great podcast. It's been crazy. It's
so.
Been crazy amount of news between then and now. Like we've had a huge UFC event, which was fantastic. You know, 261 was amazing. We just had fight nights as well, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I guess, like one that we were actually talking about him briefly on the podcast with McDojo Life was Diego Sanchez. We mentioned then he was like one of the OGs. He's been going for a long time. And now he's gone. He's gone from the UFC. They cut him with 3 fights left, I think. I think it was 2 or 3 fights.
So sad, man. Like, I don't know if I can't remember how they phrased it, if he was the longest serving fighter ever or just at the time. But
I think maybe at the time.
He's at the very least one of the longest serving fighters ever in the UFC because he was obviously in Ultimate Fighter 1.
Yeah, he won. He is the Ultimate Fighter, isn't he?
He is. Yeah, he was the first, him and Forrest Griffin. Yeah, so
before we get into, I guess, and we've touched upon it, but I guess before getting into, you know, why he's gone, what's happened to him, I guess I kind of agree with Errol Houani, who like highlighted what an amazing fighter he is before everything else. And like the amazing career he had rather than the stuff that we will talk about because it is a part of the narrative. But Diego Sanchez, like, is one of the OGs of the sport in terms of UFC. And like, I think not one of the all-time greats in terms of skill, but in terms of entertainment value. Like
100%.
Yeah. You know, him versus Gilbert Burns is an amazing fight, you know? And, you know, I remember watching that one. It was Gilbert Burns, wasn't it? I'm not just chatting.
Yes, it was. It was the crazy one, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy fight, yeah.
Where it's mental and he's like in the middle of the ring and they're just like absolutely rock and sock and robot smashing.
It's literally never a boring fight. If Diego Sanchez is fighting, it's never a boring fight, win or lose.
Yeah, and he's just, I think it's just it kind of makes me sad that I guess a part of the narrative is this now, and I think it's fair to say that like in his last 2 or 3 fights, obviously the game's moving past him a bit. He's getting a bit older, and I think everybody expected him to basically see out the contract and retire. But instead, you know, he started being very strange in the ring. And I think that's a part of the fact is that he had a different coach. I use that term very loosely.
What, the term coach?
Yeah. yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's just sad. I think that's, you know, I think the example I gave to you, Dustin, was like my flatmate. He also enjoys UFC, but he hasn't been watching it as long as we have. He kind of only really knows Diego Sanchez for all this stuff now with his coach. He doesn't know. He's watched those previous fights now, and he's like, yeah, obviously he was great back then, but look at this now. And it's just sad, really.
Well, I mean, it's what they often say about fighters. I know it's in a different context, but they always say you're only as good as your last fight. And I suppose that often happens with your fame as well and your fan base. Quite often people are fickle when it comes to athletes. So yeah, you're only as good as your last fight. So if you were mental in your last fight, that's how people are going to remember you, unfortunately. Like, I mean, look at everything Anderson Silva did, but some people who are only new to watching UFC since, you know, McGregor came along or whatever, just know Anderson Silva as like the guy that broke his leg or got knocked out by Weidman, or, you know what I mean? Like people forget the history of it.
It's sad, really, and it's like, you know, it's kind of weird. I watched a video in preparation, I guess, of talking about Diego Sanchez because it is just such a big deal, and they were talking about how in 2019 he was inducted into the Hall of Fame for his fight with Clay Guida, another great fight. And they were highlighting that year as being the year where things kind of changed for him, because that year he was going through a divorce. And this video actually highlights, because I think it's easy to kind of laugh at what's going on with Diego because it is weird. This guy, is it Josh Fabiano? Is that
I don't know if it's Fabio or Fabio. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. I say Fabio.
Fabio. We'll go with Fabio. It's easy to laugh at the stuff that he's doing because, like, it's very interesting. We talk about this after the McDojo Life episode because this guy, I think we could like dub as that. He's a McDojo Life, like he's a McDojo sort of like coach. You know, again, I really don't like using that term because he's not, but he, you know, in my opinion, from watching this video, it's easy to laugh at him like Joe Rogan did with that punching bag where he's like slipping the punching bag. He's not really, he's just walking around it and then elbowing it every now and then. And it's easy to laugh at that guy being like, oh, he's telling him to be like Tyson, like when he's in the ring. But in actual fact, when you look more into the story behind it, it actually sounds a bit more like a guy who's being manipulated by a cult. You know, because and I think that's what Dana White was saying, that this guy's like a manipulative piece of shit. And like Diego Sanchez is a great guy, but this guy's kind of ruined things because Diego Sanchez was going through a divorce in 2019. And that's when he met this Fabiano, whatever his face is. Fabio.
So it's easy to latch onto new people who are showing you encouragement and support. Yeah.
Yes. And like he was on UFC Unfiltered, where he was talking to them about how he met him. And it does sound like a guy, I don't want to use the term predator, but predatory, like looking at somebody who clearly is going through something, as you say, like traumatic, and is then jumping on him. I think it's actually really, really sad the more I look into it.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking people listening might not even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I just went on a rant there about this guy being a piece of shit, and you guys were like, who?
So we've obviously said, we've briefly explained who Diego Sanchez is, just in case anyone doesn't know. But so you can find Diego Nightmare Sanchez on Instagram, and he's posted the video on his Instagram. So basically when he went for his like pre-fight meeting, negotiations, his coach kind of decided to step in and start shouting at the panel, saying, you don't respect Diego Sanchez, you know, you're calling him names and that in the commentary, essentially things that they don't have control over. He's kind of complaining about how the media is portraying Diego Sanchez lately, and that's the media. And then he's complaining about how the commentators are calling his fights. Well, that's the commentators, and he's shouting at this panel, and he's really causing a fuss. And obviously they make fantastic points that the commentators literally just say what they see. That's exactly their job. If Diego gets hit, they're going to say he got hit. You know, if his style looks different lately, they're going to say that.
Yeah.
No
You
one
can't.
gets special. Well, I mean, you know, sometimes people are biased. You know, commentators, like anyone, they're going to try
Yeah.
their best to be unbiased, but they're going to have their favorite and least favorite fighters. That's just how it goes. But they just say what they see, and this Fabio has just stepped in and kind of tarnished Diego's career and put a really unfortunate, sad end to what was a really good career.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, that video as well, because from all accounts, from what I understand, just looking into it, I don't think the UFC was going to release Diego Sanchez. I don't think they were. But because Diego Sanchez released this video, they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to put up with this. Because
they weren't happy that they were filming, were they?
No.
They made that clear in the video that they didn't.
Well, I agree with them, because it's the commentary team. I guess it's the pre-fight meeting where they kind of discuss how he's been doing in his camp and pick his brain on how he feels the fight's going to be. So it gives them a bit of like information. And as Paul Felder's like fucking great in that video, because he's like,
he was brilliant in there.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And it's like, and Angela Hill as well just completely calls him out, being like, we're talking about Diego, we're not talking about you. Like, you're making it about you.
And he really did make it about him. He really did. Because instead of, I mean, he briefly touched on saying you're disrespecting Diego, but he very quickly turned into, you don't like my style, you're talking about me, you're talking about my coaching. And I was like, this isn't about you. This is...
No.
If you did want to have a song and a dance and, you know, have a little complain about the situation, that was not the place to do it. That was Diego's meeting.
Yeah, and it's, well, again, it's just so sad that this guy who I really like, and I don't know if it is because he released those videos, but it's like I'm reading about it as we're talking. It's like the UFC said that he didn't say if he was ready to fight or not, like health-wise. But I think it also is a big factor to do with these videos. Like, we didn't hear any rumblings of like Diego Sanchez having issues. I think he pulled out of a fight recently with Donald Cerrone. It was Donald Cerrone pulled out the fight with him. I can't recall, but like that was all that I'd heard about Diego Sanchez recently. Those two were fighting. It's a bit of a grudge match because you know, they both used to fight out of Winklejohns, and again, that's a whole part of this story as well, because in 2019, like Diego said, bring this guy into my fight camps, this Fabio. He brings him in, and like Winklejohn is like, this is really weird. This coach from Greg Jackson and Winklejohns, they were like, this is really fucking weird.
Coming from some of the greatest coaches you can find.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, they're fantastic, and they started challenging like this guy, being like, "What the fuck are you doing?" What? I don't even think like that, from what I understand. I don't think they were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I think they were like, "Okay, but can you explain this to me? Why this works?" So Diego Sanchez fired all of them, got rid of all of them from his team, and went full time with this guy. So I guess this fight with Donald Cerrone was going to be a bit of a grudge match between this. So there was a part of this narrative brewing, but it didn't, to me anyway, before it, like this happened, before them getting rid of him, it didn't really seem like this was going to be a huge narrative. It was just there. No. This guy is a strange dude. I don't even think the media give a shit about him, if I'm honest. We now care because this has happened. Like, I don't give a fuck about this guy. He looks like a fucking weirdo and doing weird shit. But I care about Diego Sanchez, and now Diego Sanchez's career's been affected because of this guy. And yeah, it's just fucking sad, man. And you look into it. Like, I've gone onto his website because in an interview he like says, "Go onto my website, you'll see." There's this fucking course. It is just a con artist. It's exactly what we were talking about in the previous podcast. He's like, change your life, change your existence, change your outlook for $999. And it's like, fuck off.
How often? Just once? Like,
just a one-off payment of no. Well, it says buy now, so I assume it's one-off. But maybe it's a monthly thing. Maybe it's a yearly thing. And I'm just like, fucking Christ, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's just sad that Diego Sanchez's career is now marred because of this fucking weirdo.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad, man. I wonder where he'll go now. I've no idea. I mean, Bellator have a habit of picking up the strays from UFC. I mean, Showtime went to PFL. Did Rory McDonald obviously went to Bellator, but he's in PFL now, isn't he?
Yeah, he won the other night. He
He
did
did.
really well.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where Sanchez will go.
Do
But
you
I
know?
saw.
Sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say, sorry, didn't he put a tweet out
He
saying,
did.
"Oh, I'm ready. Who wants me?"
Yeah.
And he tagged one, he tagged Bellator. I don't think he
Bare
tagged
knuckle.
PFL. Bare knuckle he tagged, yeah. So we'll see.
I
He'd do
think it's
well at
gonna
bare
be.
knuckle. He'd do
Yeah,
well
I
at
think
bare
it's going to
knuckle
be bare knuckle. If I'm honest,
because
I
he's a
think it's
lunatic.
gonna be
He's a
there.
lunatic. I think I don't know. I'd be scared. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
an absolute
Well, with all
lunatic.
this new weird stuff he's doing with that Fabio, maybe.
I don't know, man. But like you watch that fight, you know, like him versus Gilbert Melendez, and it's like, wow, he's you know, that's the kind of guy you expect to see in a bare knuckle boxing match.
Yeah, completely.
But,
Like
yeah.
it's so good. I don't think he'll get picked up by Bellator. He definitely won't get picked up by one. Like I just don't one. Like
One
as
one
you
aren't
say,
interested in
no.
right. This sounds really harsh to be has-beens, but Diego is definitely in the back end of his career. Do you know what I mean? So, and I don't think one are interested in that. They don't want to be seen as that. Like Eddie was still in, you know,
Prime.
like his more or less in his prime, or at least close to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mighty Mouse certainly was.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's the way they go with that.
Yeah,
Sage obviously was an up and comer. They don't want any
No.
older guys. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And I think like I agree. I don't like the term has-beens, but I guess twilights of their career is maybe a nicer way of saying it.
That's a good
word.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like, and I think it's good to see somewhere like Bellator giving people a place like that because you know Vanderlei Silva still wants to fight, and if Chael Sonnen still wants to fight, or the Tito Ortiz still want to fight, there's a place for them to do
crack
that.
on, yeah.
Yeah, crack on, you know,
Let's
like,
go, yeah.
who am I to tell? It does get to a point where you have like the Chuck Liddells where you've got to go stop fighting. Like, it's not all right.
Agreed, but I mean, I still watched it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Did
I'm
you?
still going to.
I didn't watch that.
Dude, like because even though you know that you know they're not in their prime and you know they're probably not half as good as the rest of the roster, it's like you still have a vested interest in those fighters, and I still want to. I don't know. There's something about it. I wouldn't advise it. If someone said, "What fight do you want to see?" I wouldn't go, "Yeah, bring Chuck Liddell back for one." That'd never be my thought. But if it's on, I'll watch it too. Right, let's go.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen the highlights of Tito Ortiz just because everybody talked about it. Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell. I just think when it comes to somebody like Chuck, I guess it's kind of like so comparing him with Anderson Silva, right? This is a really good comparison because there's a lot of people being like Anderson should just stop fighting, right? And I would say he should probably stop fighting at a UFC level because I just don't think he's up to that level anymore. It's sad because it's not great to see a middleweight champion as dominant, but I don't think he is.
I disagree.
Do you think he's still at that level? Because I don't.
100%. Dude, right, okay, well, when did he last get finished?
I think his last fight.
With Hall, right? So he beat Diaz on
steroids.
rounds. And he went with Brunson. Adesanya didn't finish him.
No, Adesanya didn't finish him. No,
so, I'm sorry, but if he can go with the current champion and not get finished, you know, and still have an
entertaining
fight.
He got finished by Jared Cannonier as well. He kicked his leg off.
Oh yeah, I remember that. TKO. But I still think Anderson Silva, he's not top 5 material, but he's still in there, dude. Like, if you can go 5 rounds with the current champ and have a really entertaining fight. You're in there. Like, I mean, even if he's not ranked, do you know what I mean? How many middleweights are in the UFC? No, 30. I don't know, 40 more, 50.
Yeah, I guess what I should say then maybe is that I don't want to see Anderson just become a gatekeeper of the UFC.
Well, that's the thing. It's easy to compare him to his record and his history. But if you just take him for what he is now, like it's one of those things, you know, some guys want to compete maybe for money or maybe for their legacy, so they just win and they leave, and other guys just fight because they love fighting. Well, to me, that's Anderson Silva. He just loves fighting, man.
I was going to say, but then I feel having a place like Bellator, like I know I get what you're saying with Anderson still probably being UFC level, but if we put him into Bellator, there might be sort of like legacy fights that would be more applicable. People that I could be like, well, you could still have him headline in a card and still have him against somebody of significance, because there will become a point where he's just fighting on a undercard eventually, because he's going to be fighting people who, as you say, not top 10. And how are you going to put Anderson? I know it's Anderson Silva, and as you say, you can compare him to his career, and he should always be on the main event.
Yeah,
but you can't. You just can't do that anymore.
No, of course.
It gets to the point where it's like, nah.
it just depends what he's happy with, right? If they say to him, look, you can be on the prelims or whatever. If he don't want to do that, then leave. But if he does because he loves fighting, then keep him. I mean, so yeah, he TKO from Uriah Hall. Yeah, that was great. Before that, Jared Cannonier. That was a very strange TKO. It's not often that you see that happen. It was more like an injury to the leg, wasn't it? It wasn't like
yeah. I mean, but
super.
as I've always
I'm not saying
said,
it wasn't a victory. That was a victory for Cannonier. I'm just saying if we're discussing Anderson Silva's suitability to be in the UFC, I think we can discredit that. Before that, decision with Adesanya, a decision victory over Brunson, a decision with Cormier, a decision with Bisping.
Tell you what, with Cormier, he did hurt him in that last round. There was part of me that was like, "Oh God!"
He did, and then obviously overturned, but it was still a victory against Nick Diaz. And then we had the Chris Weidman, and before that, he was Anderson Silva. So, like, I don't know. I think he still belongs in there, man. I think
I don't know. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses, 1 win, and then
but all against top guys. Who have the losses been against? Like all the top guys, because he's Anderson Silva. Just give him.
It's true.
Just give him. You know what people say about being a gatekeeper. I think being a gatekeeper is only negative. Is that? I mean, this sounds really harsh. Anyone who's fighting at that level is fantastic, but I think being a gatekeeper is only a negative term if you've never been more than that. Anderson Silva was the champion, and now if he's still good enough in his mid-40s to be a gatekeeper to like the top 10 or something, that's still incredible.
True, but my point was going to be more, actually, because my point was going to be him comparing to Chuck Liddell. And weirdly, my point was going to be, I'm still okay with seeing Anderson fight. I'm still okay with seeing him fight. But I just wouldn't probably want him to be getting fucked up by the next stuff.
You want to see him win because we like him, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see so there will be more Israel Adesanya's, there will be more Robert Whitakers, there will be more new guys coming in, and I don't really want to see Anderson Silva, a 43-year-old, get fucked up by like some 27-year-old who beats the shit out of him. Because they say Jared Cannonier fight. I always find saying his name really hard, but that fight, a little bit of a weird finish, right?
Yeah,
but. You know, it's similar to what just happened with Anthony Smith versus what's his face on the last card. Where his leg got fucked up. And it's like, people keep talking about his leg getting hurt, but it's like, it only happened because Anthony Smith kicked him. Like,
oh, no, that's all I'm saying is, so, for example, we both hate Sean O'Malley, but that kick with Figueiredo, so, like, it was a finish. It was a perfect finish.
Yeah.
It doesn't discredit. I mean, it doesn't say Sean O'Malley isn't
no, of course not
able to be in the UFC because he's got feeble legs. It's just one of them things that happens. I mean, it's not going to happen every fight.
I think with Silva, I mean it as, I don't want to see Chuck Liddell in the ring anymore because I don't think there's anything that he physically can do in the ring anymore. Like,
come on, man.
Hear me out.
It depends who he's fighting.
Hear me out. Chuck Liddell, like, in all due respect to Chuck Liddell, because I really like Chuck Liddell.
Doesn't sound like you have much respect for Chuck
Hear me out. I think he's great. He's a legend of the sport. But I'm sad to see a guy who, even walking like around, he's got a little bit of bowed legs. He doesn't stand quite right in the ring anymore, and he's incredibly slow. I don't want to see him becoming sort of like fighting, I don't know, random people that are like,
I get what you mean.
I don't want to see that. Whereas with Anderson, my point was going to be with Anderson,
because he's not in a fit state to fight anyone.
Exactly. Whereas with Anderson, he clearly is still fit. I just don't want to see him going against these fucking killers that are 27-year-olds who are just going to come up. Because the thing with Chuck Liddell is, if you put him in with somebody at Bellator, I still think he's going to lose. Whereas if I take Anderson and put him in Bellator and against, I guess, legacy sort of fights, if we call them that, there's a good chance he'll keep winning. Because he's still really good. He's just not as good as the 27-year-old killers who are coming up in the ring. Like, even if he was in Bellator.
You're right there, mate. You're right there.
Yeah, even in Bellator, there's, like, as we were saying last time, Bellator are creating their own champions now. I don't want to see Anderson Silva versus their fucking champions. I don't want to see that. He'll get fucked up. But I'd like to see Anderson versus like these sort of legacy fights, we're calling them. Like they did Vanderlei Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Wasn't a good fight, unfortunately. But, it's a fight which I think people... I mean, I watched that one.
You're right. That would be a good move to see. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. I don't want to see people... Just to make clear, I do like Chuck Liddell. I do really love him. It's just... Watching him get knocked out by Tito Ortiz was just fucking sad, man. Like, it was just really sad. And I was just like, God, this is tragic. I really didn't need to see this either, because I don't hate Chuck Liddell, hate Tito Ortiz, really. But, he is a bit of a knob, and I don't want to see Chuck get fucked up by that guy.
Huh. You know what, right? I used to, I say thoroughly dislike, that's a bit too much. I wasn't a big fan of Tito Ortiz at all until I saw him as a coach on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
Mate, I gained loads of respect for him after watching him as a coach. That was really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, he's... I don't dislike him like... Oh, like, for example, what's his face?
It was because of the way he obviously came in as like the bad boy, didn't he? And I'm not a big fan of people pretending to be someone they're not. Yeah. I don't like people who put on an act. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he did do that a bit, and that's why I disliked him. But when I watched him on The Ultimate Fighter, I liked him a lot more.
Yeah, like I actively dislike Josh Koscheck. I don't like him. We've brought it up nearly every podcast. I hate that guy.
You do.
I don't hate Tito Ortiz like Josh Koscheck. I don't like. I just
don't understand why you hate him so much. Why? Like, I'm
such a knob.
I'm just indifferent to him. I mean, I don't like his hair. Other than that,
he was a knob. Maybe it was because I watched The Ultimate Fighter with him and GSP, but he was a fucking knob throughout that whole thing.
Oh, I've not seen that one yet, to be fair. I've only seen the one that he was on.
No, he coaches against GSP, right? And GSP's fighters fuck up all of his fighters because GSP spends all the time coaching them. Like, I think only one guy actually got through from the start. Yeah, the first rounds of it for Josh Koscheck, and then that guy lost in the other round. So it literally was just all of GSP's guys in the semi-finals and finals, which a lot of people were like, oh, that's a bit boring now. But Josh Koscheck just wouldn't shut the fuck up. And also, what made it worse, it's one thing being a shit talker. He just didn't coach his team. He just didn't fucking give a shit. He just wanted to annoy GSP. And I was just like, God, you're there to help these guys.
I'll have to watch that one then. Because I was making my way through them and then I stopped.
I think that's why I dislike him so much. But
all right, I'll give that one a watch.
The only other thing with Tito Ortiz is I find him fucking hilarious. Just some of the shit he says is hilarious.
He is funny. Have you seen the one where he's coaching against Shamrock?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's very good because, like, Shamrock is such a dickhead, man.
Yeah,
Ken, obviously, not Frank.
Yeah, Frank's awesome, but Ken is a fucking knob.
What a knob, man. Yeah. I don't want to go too far. I know we haven't got loads of time today. I don't want to go too far without recapping.
Of course.
Last night's event and then maybe the previous one if we have time. So it was pretty mad to see Prochazka to beat Reyes. I don't know. I thought that was this Prochazka's gone out of nowhere.
Yeah. You always do polls.
I can't remember how to say his name.
We'll go with Prochazka, and if we say it wrong, let us know. But you always do polls beforehand on your Instagram page, and I actually went with Dominic Reyes. I really thought Dominic Reyes was going to win that. Yeah,
I mean, you know, because he beat Jones, in my opinion. I was like, well, anyone who can beat... I mean, MMA math don't work, but anyone who can beat Jones, I'm like, surely he's going to beat most people in that division. And then... Here comes Yuri out of nowhere. So, I was so impressed. That was fantastic. Amazing performance.
Phenomenal performance.
I'm looking forward to seeing more from him. His record's great as well.
That elbow was fucking insane.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Jesus. Against the cage as well, and then just bang. Oh, Jesus.
I was unhappy to see Cub lose. I really like Cub Swanson. I'm a big fan, but
I like Cub as well.
Yeah.
I think he's another guy who I'm like, in the least disrespectful way, because it is kind of like what we're talking about. I don't think being a gatekeeper is necessarily a bad thing. I think people get called that a lot of the time when they're like journeyman sort of like record and they go, oh, they've got so many losses.
Yeah.
But I think to be a gatekeeper to a division, it essentially means you are the best of the top 5, basically, or top 6. And
well, that's it. Yeah, being a gatekeeper, like another thing you can just call it is being like the number 10 rank or the number 5 rank. Like that's all it means.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Means you're really fucking good.
and you're struggling to get any higher. Like I don't know. I understand the term, but I don't think it's as negative as people.
Yeah, I think people use it as an insult, but I think if people say it to people when they're coming up. I remember one of the big ones was when Donald Cerrone was fighting that young guy who kept calling him a gatekeeper, and then Donald Cerrone fucked him up, and it was like, yeah.
Was that the head kick, the body shot head kick combination?
No, it was. It was. I'm gonna have to look that up, but it was him. It was this young guy who was just actually a bit of a knobhead, and he was just chatting.
Are you looking it up? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking it up, and he's chatting. He was chatting up complete shit to Donald Cerrone.
It's always good to see.
Alex Hernandez.
I love Donald Cerrone, man.
Yeah, I do too. Guy's a fucking legend. But he was chatting absolute shit to Donald Cerrone. And he was calling him like, oh, he's a gatekeeper, this sort of thing. And Donald Cerrone fucked him up. And if I was Donald Cerrone, I'd be like, I am a gatekeeper, and you aren't good enough to go above me. Like that's how it
too
is.
Right, too right. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting.
That's true, actually, because you got to be careful calling someone a gatekeeper and then losing because you've just announced yourself as not worthy of the top 10 or the top 5 or whoever he was a gatekeeper for.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
You've just declared that yourself, whereas if you just gave him the respect he deserved, you could have just fought someone else at the top 5. But more or less just...
You've told everybody in the world that you're not good enough.
I don't know. Whatever, man. Another one from last night. You don't often see draws. That was rare. But speaking about people we don't like, that Kutalaba, not a fan. Don't like him. Winds me up. Well, because some people say, oh, he's well exciting at the weigh-ins. I just think he's a dick at the weigh-ins. Like, he does that weird, like, intense thing where he'll, like, kind of sit back and then suddenly jump forward and scream in their face. It was him who painted himself up as Hulk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And I was like... Not that I'm massive, but dude, you're not big enough to paint yourself green. Like you got to be big to paint yourself green, man. Like Brock Lesnar could do it. Like that's about it. You got to be
big. When I saw him for the first time, I thought he was like a middleweight. I thought it was like a middleweight.
I did. I was like, oh, he's a little geezer to be painting himself green.
Yeah,
like that don't look right.
Yeah, I know it's me because obviously me stood next to him. I'm gonna be like fucking tiny, but like. He didn't look huge to me when I first saw him in the ring.
But you're not painting yourself green. Like you know where you stand. Do you know what I mean?
As far as you know, it's in my spare time. I love painting myself green. Man, I completely agree. I don't like him either.
He's obviously trying to create this image of himself as being like this strong, tough, really intense guy,
angry,
and it's like,
he
just got a draw, and I'm sure that before that he lost 2 fights in a row. Did he? He's been on a losing streak, hasn't
he? He fought. It became a bit of a grudge match because he claimed that. Do you remember he was like playing possum in the ring and being like,
yeah.
And then he was like super pissed off when he lost. So they rematched it again, and then he got fucked up.
At the end of the day, right? So if you're pretending to be hurt, right, and you're trying to do it to the extent that you're tricking your opponent into thinking you're hurt. How the fuck do you think the ref is going to see? What? So you think you'll trick your opponent, but not the ref?
Yeah, the ref will look and go, "Oh, that's not real."
Yeah, why do you think the ref knows what you're doing and your opponent doesn't? You know what I mean? Like, where does the logic for that come from? That is such a stupid game to play.
I know.
Like, oh yeah, I'll trick him, but not him. Yeah, that was Ankalaev, wasn't it?
It was Ankalaev, and then they fought again, and
he lost both. Yeah,
he lost both.
Yeah, he beat Roundtree, but he lost to Scherer. He's got a very mixed career recently.
Yeah, I just don't rate
lost,
him.
win, lost. Yeah, just not bothered, man. Not bothered.
Yeah.
Get away. Stop painting yourself green. Fuck off.
I don't rate him at all. I mean, it was an interesting card. I think the more exciting one recently was obviously last weekend's, which we can touch upon briefly because obviously everybody's talked about it. But those 3 title fights were fucking nuts, mate. They were just crazy.
From last week. Oh my gosh, man. So I mean,
Kamaru
I wasn't
Usman.
surprised by Usman. I wasn't surprised at all. I was like, well, of course. I mean, I really don't rate Masvidal that highly. He's just a guy. He's just he's one of the geezers. He's up there. Do you know what I mean? But
I thought Usman was going to win, but like beforehand, I saw there was a fucking betting advert, which I don't usually bet, but there was a betting advert which was like 60-1 odds that Kamaru Usman will knock him out, which I was
gosh.
I should have taken that because I at the time was like,
if you didn't.
I know. Because at the time I was like, I thought Usman was going to win, but I didn't think he was going to knock him out. I thought
it'd be a ground and pound too, right?
Yeah, I thought he'd fuck him up in terms of ground and pound. Like I thought he was going to take him down and dominate him because that's what Usman's great at. But fucking hell, man, Jesus. Yeah. That's one of the best knockouts I've seen. Like it was crazy.
It was crisp. And I just I don't massively dislike Jorge Masvidal. I'm not a big fan. I don't like the whole BMF thing. Like shut your mouth. But I love how Jorge, there's an interview with him saying that like Kamaru Usman just does not possess the power to hurt someone with his hands. Like he just can't knock anyone out. Like, and it must feel really naff to not have that manly aspect of yourself or whatever. And then boom, see you later, mate.
Mate. The way his sweat just bounced off him as well. Oh
Well,
my god.
did they pour like a bottle of water over him
Yeah, I
in the
think so
break
as
between
well.
the
Yeah,
rounds, like to cool him
yeah.
down, and then it just made it way more theatrical. Like all of the still frames, all of the photos from the knockout are beautiful
It's
because of it.
amazing, man. When it happened, I was just like, because it's happening, you're watching it, and you're like, oh, this is a good fight. It's back and forth. Usman just won that first round, but
Yeah,
Masvidal's still in there, and then just boom, and you're like,
yeah,
oh my god,
out of nowhere.
like
And then
insane,
obviously the Namajunas. The thing with that
amazing,
Namajunas
amazing.
knockout, yeah, it was amazing. It was quality, but I've watched it so many times, and it just doesn't look anywhere near powerful enough to knock out anyone. It was
I
like a
think that's why
little,
it's so
just a
deceptive.
little toe flick, bink,
Yeah.
really gentle on the chin, and
Hmm.
slept. Madness. Like, so I'd like to see that fight again
Hmm.
because I'm not saying it was lucky at all. It's not lucky that she landed it. I think it's lucky that she knocked her out because I don't think she was even expecting that kick to possess the power to knock someone out.
I think
Like,
that's the thing. It's like, does she? That's interesting, man. I don't know. I'm still fine with a rematch just because I think that's what they did with
Zhang's amazing,
Rose
yeah,
and
because she's
Joanna.
fantastic. Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think I'm like need it like you're saying like because of that she didn't expect it. But it's kind of a fight game, in it. You know, if you should be prepared for that stuff. And she knocked her out in the first round, so if the UFC were like, actually, yeah, no, we're going to go another way, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's an outrage. You know what I mean? Because she did
Well,
finish her in the first round.
who would you have Namajunas fight instead next, other than giving a
I
rematch to Zhang?
think that's a good question. It's a not as big of a division at the moment because Rose has basically to get back to where she is. She's fought pretty much everybody below
So
her.
Zhang hasn't lost since 2014. So she's beaten everyone. She's beat Jacek and Andrade, Tisha Torres, Jessica Aguila. She's beat everyone on her way up,
I
and then
think.
she lost to Rose. So I
I
think
think
get straight back in there.
that's fair. I think if Carla Esposa wins her recent fight that she's going to have, I think Carla Esposa should fight her
Do you
because,
think?
yeah, I think that's Rose's. That was what Rose was going to fight for the title the first time. That was the
Right.
moment she was in the title fight. It was after tough whatever number it was. We're going to crown a new champion, and
Yeah, she's on a 4-fight win streak. Who's she fighting next?
she is fighting Yang Xion, who is another up and coming Chinese fighter. Who I think it's interesting. The UFC put 3 Chinese fighters as well on that fight card we just had with Weili Zhang, and all 3 of them lost. Which I was like, they clearly wanted them to win to open up that market, and all of them lost. But yeah, she's another up and coming fighter from China who I think is very talented.
Sweet.
13 wins, 1 loss, and I think it's somebody who could end up being a name. And if she beats Carla Esposa, it definitely puts her up there to be maybe fighting Joanna, because Joanna's like refusing to fight unless it's a title, which I'm like, nobody's entitled to a title.
No, they're
Fight.
not. And like Joanna, yeah, she was obviously amazing while she had her run, but recently she lost to Zhang, she beat Michelle Waterson, she lost to Shevchenko, she beat Torres, she lost to Rose, she lost to Rose.
Yeah.
Like, mate, you've had a lot of losses recently.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you need to fight again. You can't just jump back in. Like, she's mad. Both times she lost to Rose, she was still like, "I'm the real champion." What do you mean the real champion?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the first one was definitive as well. You fucking lost.
Yeah, and the second one was like, I think like a convincing decision.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
It was a good fight, but I don't think it was a close fight. I think it was an easy decision.
Yeah, me too. I completely
the
agree
first the TKO. But that's the thing, man. I don't know. I think Zhang should just get straight back in there. I think she's had such a mad win streak lately. I think just slap her straight back in there. And I think that was just like a freak knockout. It didn't look hard enough at all. I think it was a freak knockout. And I say,
it depends as well, doesn't it, how much Zhang is cutting weight, right? Because if she's cutting a lot, that could affect why she's getting knocked out like that.
Dehydrated. Yeah,
that could be a factor of that. So and this probably leads me to the third title fight. Is another thing you could do with Zhang, depending if it is the weight cutting that's an issue. Could she go up and fight Shevchenko?
Well, so this is what would be amazing, is if Zhang gets the rematch, let's say she won, and then fought Shevchenko.
Yeah, title
that'd
versus
be cool.
title. That'd
Champ
be cool.
champ.
I mean,
yeah, that'd be wicked.
I just don't think anybody can beat Shevchenko. I just don't.
No, I think Shevchenko's the best, but I mean, who else is there? Do you know what I mean? Who's going to fight Shevchenko otherwise? Yeah, but obviously she's already beat her twice, hasn't she? But
very close though. The first one, obviously, definitely Amanda. Second one,
very close.
I don't know.
So I've had this discussion with a few people, and my thing is, my personal opinion, I think Shevchenko is more talented as a martial artist than Amanda Nunes. I don't and not being harsh, I don't think it's close. I just think Amanda Nunes is so much, not like so much bigger than her, but she's bigger than her enough to close the gap in the talent.
And power.
I mean, and I think that's exactly how it goes. And then Amanda's just that bit bigger that just edges out the fight. So I'd love to see them fight again because there's no one else to fight them. But I'd also love to see someone come up to fight Shevchenko.
I think cool. I agree.
That fight's not getting enough coverage because Chris Weidman, Kamaru Usman, and Rose Namajunas were all so crazy. Yeah. No one's talking about Valentina Shevchenko's awesome mounted crucifix elbow finish, which was sick.
True. It does kind of feel kind of like a blip, not a blip in the terms of it's a blip, but I mean like of everything everybody's talking about. Like DC and Arohawani obviously talked about it, but they were way more concentrated on Rose because obviously that's crazy. Kamaru Usman's knockout was crazy. Like, I think it's because we expect Shevchenko to win. You expect her to win. So when she does win, it's like, oh yeah, she's done it. She's won. The only thing I'd say with that going up thing, Jessica Andrade, not to discredit her, she looked fucking tiny in there, mate. She looked so small in comparison to Valentina. I honestly, for a minute, was like, that's fucking, like, I did not expect them to be that size difference. Like, Andrade just did not look like that weight at all. She looked so small. And I don't know why people were going, oh, this is going to be her biggest test. I know it sounds horrible to Andrade, but really? Like, her biggest test. This is her biggest test. Jessica Andrade, not Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Jessica Andrade is her biggest test. I like Jessica Andrade. She seems like a really cool person. But she is very much like a stand and brawl. I'm going to stand.
I know, man. But they just say whatever they got to say to sell the fight, don't they? So
yeah, I mean, I get why Shevchenko was pissed off. She said beforehand, she was like, "I'm annoyed that I was like." Afterwards, she was like, "I was annoyed that people kept saying this."
But I don't know. That's how you sell a fight. And if they line up this fight and they just purely say, well, there's no one else, so let's feed this woman. You know what I mean? It's like they obviously have to say like, oh no, she presents a really difficult challenge. Otherwise, no one's going to watch it. Why would you bother? And then obviously the Weidman leg break is the last thing on that card to talk about.
Oh my god!
Which was obviously horrific. We won't talk about it for too long. First thing to say is some people were saying, oh, it's karma for Anderson Silva.
Yeah,
Chris Weidman, when he first celebrated after their fight, he didn't know that Anderson Silva had snapped his shin. He just thought he'd won the fight. He put his hands up. He was like, yeah. And then he saw it and was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, he was super helpful and
respectful as well.
Yeah,
those people are saying that. I'm like, can you... Even if he did celebrate afterwards and didn't become respectful, which he did, I still don't wish somebody for their fucking leg to break.
No, that's not right. No one deserves that.
What the fuck? Like, yeah, no, awful, mate. Awful.
So awful thing for anything to happen, and it showed Uriah Hall's class as well. Like, wow, he handled it so well.
I guess that leads me to my question for you. Like, two, one, obviously focusing on Weidman for a minute because it happened to him. Do you see Weidman coming back? What do you think is going to happen to his career? And then two, what do you do with Uriah Hall now?
So madness. So that's such a loaded question. I mean, Weidman's 36. So I think Anderson Silva, I mean, it was mad. People couldn't believe how fast Anderson Silva turned it around. Was it 2.5, 3 years that he
it was really
out and came
quick.
Back?
It was crazy.
So Weidman could definitely come back because Weidman's style is largely wrestling based.
Yeah,
so when you're older and your reactions start going down, your speed starts dropping, grappling based martial arts tend to do better in the older age than striking martial arts. So he could certainly come back. The only thing is, I mean, look, anyone who's ever been in a car accident, how long does it take you to stop like panicking every time a similar situation happens? Like, is he going to be throwing those kicks with the same vigor? Probably not. Is he going to be checking kicks the same? Probably not.
No.
Like, I don't know. He might be nervous.
Anyone is completely different, isn't it?
Anyone who's broken a bone before, like, or broken a leg, like when you first try to stand on it and it hurts so bad, it takes a long time to get the confidence just to stand on the leg. So I don't know, man. I don't know if he'll be back at 36.
I want to see him back.
Let's say it takes 3 to 4 years for him to come back healthy. I mean, that's 39, 40. That's around the age that most fighters start to retire.
Yeah.
I don't know how it affects his contract with the injury that he's got. I'm sure. Yeah. I don't know. Surely they can't expect him to fulfill the contract.
Get in there, Chris.
So I don't know with Uriah Hall. It's a tricky one because he's got quite a mixed record, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think if he had won this, we would actually start talking about him. Maybe.
Well, I mean, technically
title
he
contention.
won.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know why I said it like that because
Title contention.
I think so. I think
no, he's number 10.
I think beating Weidman would get him into that point where it would be like, you face one more guy in the top 5, and then you get into that. Then you could be maybe the next fight. That's
sure,
I mean.
yeah, another fight. Yeah,
he's in the title picture. He's just
sorry, I thought you meant like give him Adesanya. I mean, I was like, nah, not yet.
I'm in there, yeah, fuck it.
Weidman was 13 and Uriah Hall was 10. So I say Uriah. Personally, I say he fights someone between 5 and 10, then he fights someone in the top 5, then the title. I don't think you get it that quick, personally, especially when you've got Vettori wants a rematch. Whitaker's in there ready to get a rematch.
Vettori is fighting him. They're doing Adesanya versus Vettori because Adesanya was saying to Whitaker, "Oh, you got to fight on this date," and Whitaker was like, "I'm still injured and I'm healing up and I'm not fighting on your terms." So
which is fair.
Yeah, completely fair. And I think actually maybe you do Uriah Hall versus Jared Cannonier. I think that's maybe a good fight.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd like. I don't know why I don't like Vettori. That sounds harsh. I don't know. There's just something about him. I'm not a fan.
I don't find him an interesting fighter, if I'm honest.
The main thing, even though I don't like Adesanya, I'd like Adesanya to beat Vettori because I want Robert Whitaker to beat Adesanya for the title. I don't want them to not meet again because I feel like Whitaker didn't look like Whitaker in their fight. And I feel like when I've watched him, especially in his most recent fight, wow, man! Like when he beat Gastelum, he looked incredible, and
he looked better than he ever has.
Yeah, and I don't think Adesanya beats that Whitaker.
No, and I don't want to give Adesanya any advantages of, let's do it in 2 months, and it's like 2 months out of a fight.
Well, do you think
like,
that's probably why he did it, right? He wants to beat Whitaker again, but he wants to do it where he has the best chance of beating him. And I think after watching his fight against Gastelum, I mean, again, MMA math does not work.
No.
But Gastelum and Adesanya had a crazy fight, and Whitaker made him look like he'd never fought before.
Yeah.
So I think Adesanya wants every advantage he can get if that rematch ever comes about.
No, I agree with you, man.
He may have offered the fight knowing full well that he wouldn't accept it.
Yeah. It makes him look better, doesn't it?
It makes him look better.
Yeah. Mate, I genuinely, in the recent months and recently, Robert Whitaker is one of my top 5 fighters at the moment. I really like that guy. Like learning about his history. He was saying he was brought up by his dad, and that's why he's got those tattoos. And he always punches the tattoos before he starts because it's reminds him of his dad being there, and he's always going to be there. Genuinely, he is a fucking awesome guy. I'm just dude, I really want him to beat Adesanya and regain that championship. And I just don't see, I say against Gastelum, I don't think there's anything Adesanya brings to that fight that Robert can't deal with now. No. I'm not saying Adesanya's shit or anything. He's great, but I just think Robert's
he's the same fighter every fight. I don't think he's bringing anything new. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, we might have to wrap up shortly, right?
Yeah.
But just a couple more things I want to mention. Obviously, what a shame that Yoel Romero has been medically suspended from the fight.
Completely forgot about that.
Wow. Literally, there was earlier when you were talking about Diego Sanchez and you said something about his coach has rumbled something, and I was like, no, yo. I mean, I'm obviously still gonna love tuning in to watch Rumble.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a shame, man. I'm so sad about that. And just to be clear, a medical suspension and a failed drug test are different.
He
they are different.
No, it's not. I was actually, when I saw that, I was more worried about his health. Is he all right? Why was he? Is there any more details on that?
I haven't seen anything yet, but obviously he's an older guy, isn't he? He's in his mid 40s.
Yeah,
and
he's
going up as well. He's going from middle to light heavy. I don't know, man. Maybe the training, maybe the camp has been hard.
I hope he's all right, because I would be gutted to that fight never. If it doesn't happen now, okay. But down the line, Bellator could 100% put that on, and I'm going to be tuning in every time.
100%, man. So I can't wait for that. And then obviously in one, Ung La and Sang lost to Redder, so that's cool. I mean, it was a decision, but Sang was on a tear, and obviously Derrida, current champion. That was a cool fight. Eddie Alvarez lost, which I don't like to see Eddie lose because I do like him.
I like Eddie.
but I do like that it legitimizes one. I've said this before. I like that fighters from UFC who are in their prime, and Eddie was the champion. In my opinion, he wasn't the best fighter at the time. I don't know how he became champion, to be honest.
No.
He was obviously top 10 worthy, and it's nice to see. It's nice to prove that ONE and Bellator and that have fighters that can beat UFC fighters.
Man, definitely. I completely agree with you. And maybe it was a quick turnaround for Eddie because he recently fought as well, but it does 100% legitimize what ONE has on offer, and I think we want to see more of that, man. We want to see more of.
They're developing their own talent rather than poaching it from elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's what we need Bellator to do more. So don't get Diego Sanchez.
Rug lost to Strikes, which was mad. Omar Kane, because he's. But I mean, I weren't too surprised, to be honest, because he's very sloppy. He's like a big, strong guy who just slings his weight. But I mean, he's a wrestler, Senegalese wrestler, which is cool. But when it comes to throwing strikes, it's ridiculous. So
Shinya
Aoki, I don't know if you've watched much of him, mate.
He's fucking amazing. Amazing.
Jiu-jitsu.
He's so good at jiu-jitsu.
Not at all surprising that he got a first round submission. Colby Northcutt, obviously Sage Northcutt's sister, wins again. Not surprising because she's like 2 foot taller than everyone she fights. God damn, she's big.
Yeah,
have you seen her fight? She's huge.
Yeah, no, I saw her, man. It's crazy how tall she is. It's kind of, again, when similar to the Jessica Andrade versus Shevchenko, you kind of watch it going, are you the same weight division? This is really weird.
I know. But she's very slim, isn't she?
She's very slender. Yeah,
she's got fantastic reach. Great striker, but she won by submission, so fair play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all the news. I can't think of anything else that's happened recently.
It's kind of like a news roundup episode, lots happened.
It is. I'm looking forward to next week when we'll have Ahmed on.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Ahmed's a client of mine who does Muay Thai with me. Hopefully going to start doing some grappling as well, some MMA. So he's going through Ramadan at the moment, as are millions. But he's still training. He's still training in the gym. He's still doing Muay Thai, which is awesome. And he still gives it his all. And I'm so impressed. So obviously, for anyone unaware, he can't drink water. He can't eat. You have to wait till sundown. And I cannot make it through an hour of Thai without any water. Like there's no way. There's no way. I couldn't do it. So I'm really excited to just talk to him and find out how Ramadan has affected his training. Obviously, he goes to the gym as well and he's trying to gain weight, put on muscle, how it's affected that. So it'd be really nice to hear from how
100%
how he's handling that.
Yeah, big time. It's going to be really insightful, and it's great to get somebody on talking about that.
100%.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, okay, great. Man. Cool.
Well,
roundup episode of news. Yeah, no, good fun.
Episode of news. And that's today, and that's tomorrow, and I'm Dustin.
Today in the world.
That's awesome. The way the cookie crumbles. I like it.
Awesome. Right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Combat Casuals podcast.
To get involved with the ultimate fighting conversation, email us at combatcasuals@outlook.com.
We can answer your questions in our next podcast.
Or maybe even have you on the show.
Be sure to follow, subscribe, leave us a review, or support us however you can.
Thank you to Me Against the World for our theme music.
Catch you next time.